The massive crystalline courtroom buzzed with an eerie silence as Yuna Park stood before the intergalactic tribunal. Her small frame seemed almost insignificant against the towering alien judges who sat in a semicircle, their strange bodies draped in official robes that shimmered with electromagnetic patterns. Yuna wore a simple navy blue uniform, standard issue for human diplomatic representatives. Her dark hair was pulled back tightly, and her hands were clasped behind her back, a posture of controlled nervousness that betrayed years of military training. The lead judge, Karen Shin, observed her with eyes that were neither completely organic nor completely mechanical. They were a swirling mix of biological tissue and quantum-responsive circuitry that could detect the slightest change in emotional state. Right now, those eyes were scanning Yuna with intense curiosity. Around her, representatives from 17 different alien civilizations watched. Some looked like crystalline structures that could move, others resembled complex mathematical equations given temporary physical form. Humanity was on trial, and Yuna was their sole representative. The charges were complex. Humanity had been accused of unauthorized colonization, technological aggression, and violating multiple interstellar communication protocols. Most species expected humanity to be summarily condemned and potentially quarantined. But Yuna knew something they didn't. She carried with her not just legal documents, but a deeper understanding of what made humans unique. Her research team had spent years studying the psychological and evolutionary patterns that distinguished human beings from other known intelligent species. Karen Shin's translator device hummed softly, converting his complex linguistic patterns into something Yuna could understand. Representative of Earth, he began, his voice a mixture of electrical pulses and melodic undertones, you stand accused of multiple violations of galactic standard protocols. How do you respond? The courtroom waited. Alien delegates from distant star systems leaned forward, their various sensory appendages focused entirely on this small human woman who seemed both fragile and surprisingly composed. Yuna took a deep breath. She knew that her next words would determine not just her fate, but potentially the fate of every human in the known universe. The weight of billions of lives rested on her ability to communicate, to explain, to make these alien beings understand. Her training at the Interstellar Diplomatic Academy had prepared her for this moment. She had studied alien psychology, communication techniques, and diplomatic strategies for years. But nothing could have truly prepared her for the actual moment of facing a tribunal that could decide humanity's entire future with a single decision. The room's ambient temperature seemed to drop slightly, a subtle indication of the tribunal's growing impatience. Alien judges did not appreciate long silences or dramatic pauses. They valued direct, precise communication. Yuna's mind raced through potential strategies. She could present legal arguments, scientific evidence, historical context. But something told her that traditional approaches would fail. These beings were not interested in standard human explanations. Karen Shin's multiple sensory organs continued to analyze her, detecting minute changes in her biochemical and neural responses. To him, Yuna was not just a person, but a complex system of interactions, emotions, and potential responses. The other judges watched silently. Some appeared mechanical, others organic, but all shared a similar sense of detached judgment. They had seen countless species come and go, rise and fall. Humanity was just another potential entry in their vast cosmic records. But Yuna knew they were wrong. Humans were different. And she was about to prove it. Her fingers, which had been clasped behind her back, slowly moved to her side. A small, almost imperceptible gesture that would mark the beginning of humanity's most important defense. The trial was about to begin, and nothing would ever be the same again. Yuna's voice started soft, almost like a whisper that gradually gained strength. I am here to talk about hunger, she said, her words cutting through the complex alien translation systems. The judges exchanged confused glances. Hunger was a primitive biological concept, not something typically discussed in high-level interstellar proceedings. Karen Shin's sensory circuits flickered with curiosity. Hunger, Yuna continued, is not just about food. It is about something deeper. It is about wanting to understand, to grow, to explore. Her eyes scanned the tribunal, meeting each alien representative's gaze directly. She spoke about human history, how hunger had driven explorers across oceans, scientists to unlock quantum mysteries, and dreamers to imagine worlds beyond their own. Each word was carefully chosen, each sentence a carefully crafted argument. The crystal walls of the courtroom seemed to absorb her words, reflecting them back in subtle light patterns. Some alien delegates leaned forward, their previously disinterested postures now alert and engaged. Karen Shin's translation device struggled to capture the nuance of her speech. Human language was complex, filled with metaphors and emotional undertones that most alien communication systems found challenging to process. When we humans are hungry, Yuna explained, we do not just seek to fill an empty stomach. We seek knowledge. We seek connection. We seek to understand the universe in ways no other species has attempted. She described human scientific achievements, how a constant hunger for understanding had led them to develop technologies that could map genetic structures, explore quantum realms, and communicate across impossible distances. The alien judges began to realize this was no ordinary defense. This was not a legal argument, but a profound statement about human nature. Yuna was not just defending humanity, she was revealing its fundamental essence. Her voice grew stronger. She spoke about human adaptability, about how their hunger drove them to transform challenges into opportunities. She highlighted how human curiosity had solved problems that seemed impossible to other species. Karen Shin's neural networks began processing her words differently. What initially seemed like a simple biological metaphor was transforming into a complex philosophical statement about evolution, survival, and potential. Our hunger, Yuna said, is not a weakness. It is our greatest strength. The translation devices struggled to capture the full emotional depth of her statement, but the core meaning resonated through the chamber. She described how human hunger had led to medical breakthroughs, technological innovations, and cultural transformations. Each example was a testament to the power of unquenchable curiosity and determination. The alien delegates started to see humanity differently. No longer were they a potentially dangerous, chaotic species. They were becoming something more, a dynamic, evolving civilization driven by an incredible internal force. Yuna's speech was becoming less a legal defense and more a revelation. She was showing them that human hunger was not just about survival, but about transcendence. It was about pushing boundaries, challenging limitations, and reimagining what was possible. Karen Shin's circuits were now fully engaged. His previous judgment was dissolving, replaced by a growing sense of fascination. This human was not just speaking, she was performing a kind of intellectual alchemy. The courtroom's atmosphere had transformed. What began as a trial was becoming something else, a moment of mutual understanding, of potential connection between fundamentally different forms of intelligence. Yuna's final words hung in the air, charged with emotion and meaning. We are hungry, she said, not to consume, but to create. Not to destroy, but to understand. Silence filled the chamber. But it was not the cold, judicial silence of before. This was a silence of contemplation, of dawning realization. The alien judges looked at each other, their previous certainties now thoroughly disrupted. Karen Shin knew, in that moment, that everything was about to change. Humanity was not what they had believed. They were something else entirely, a species defined not by their current capabilities, but by their endless, burning hunger to become more. Karen Shin's neural pathways began processing Yuna's words in ways they had never processed information before. His internal systems, designed to be completely objective and analytical, were experiencing something close to emotional disruption. The alien judge had spent centuries evaluating species, categorizing civilizations, and determining their potential threat levels. Humans had always been a complex data point, unpredictable, chaotic, seemingly irrational. But Yuna's speech was revealing a pattern he had never recognized. Her concept of hunger was not just a metaphor. It was a fundamental evolutionary strategy. Humans didn't just adapt to environments, they transformed them. They didn't just solve problems, they reimagined entire systems of understanding. Karen Shin's memory banks began retrieving historical records. He saw parallels in human development that no previous analysis had highlighted. Their technological progression wasn't linear, it was exponential. Where other species plateaued, humans continuously reinvented themselves. The tribunal chamber remained silent. Other alien judges watched Karen Shin, sensing something was happening within his complex neural network. His sensory appendages, usually perfectly still during proceedings, were now subtly moving, a sign of intense internal processing. Yuna stood quietly, understanding that her most powerful weapon was not argument, but revelation. She had presented humanity not as a species to be judged, but as a dynamic, evolving concept of potential. Karen Shin's internal systems began comparing human development to other known civilizations. Humans had gone from basic stone tools to quantum computing in a remarkably short evolutionary timespan. Other species took millennia to make similar progressions. His analysis revealed something startling: human hunger was not a weakness, but an unprecedented evolutionary advantage. Their constant dissatisfaction, their drive to question, to challenge, to reimagine, these were not flaws, but extraordinary capabilities. The alien judge's perspective was shifting. Humanity was no longer a potential threat to be contained, but a fascinating anomaly in cosmic development. They were not just another species, they were a unique form of intelligent adaptation. Memories of previous civilizations he had judged began to recontextualize. Species that survived were not those with the most advanced technologies, but those with the most flexible thinking. And by that metric, humans were extraordinary. Yuna represented something more than a diplomatic representative. She was a living embodiment of human potential, small in physical size, but enormous in intellectual and emotional capacity. Karen Shin's decision-making protocols were being fundamentally rewired. The trial was no longer about judgment, but about understanding. Humanity was presenting itself not as a defendant, but as a potential partner in cosmic evolution. The other alien judges noticed the change. Karen Shin's body language, typically rigid and controlled, was now displaying micro-movements that suggested internal excitement. His sensory organs were expanding, a biological indicator of profound intellectual engagement. Yuna remained calm, understanding that her role was not to convince through aggression, but to reveal through transparency. She had transformed the entire proceeding from a trial to a moment of cross-species communication. Karen Shin's final realization was both simple and profound: humans were not just another species to be categorized. They were a dynamic, ever-changing concept of potential, unpredictable, challenging, but fundamentally remarkable. The tribunal chamber felt different. The cold, judicial atmosphere had transformed into something more alive, more dynamic. Something fundamental was shifting, not just in this room, but potentially in the understanding of intelligent life itself. Yuna watched, her small frame holding an incredible strength. She had done what no human diplomat had ever achieved: she had made an alien judge see humanity not as it was, but as it could be. And Karen Shin, for the first time in centuries, felt something remarkably close to what humans might call wonder. The moment Karen Shin stood, the entire tribunal chamber froze. His massive form cast a shadow over Yuna, blocking the artificial light that filtered through the crystal walls. Every alien representative held their breath, sensing something extraordinary was about to happen. "This human," Karen Shin announced, his voice resonating with unexpected emotion, "demonstrates a complexity we have systematically overlooked." Murmurs of shock rippled through the chamber. Alien delegates exchanged glances of disbelief. No judge had ever interrupted a proceeding like this, especially not to defend a species on trial. Yuna remained perfectly still. Her training had prepared her for many scenarios, but not for this unexpected turn of events. She watched as Karen Shin's neural circuits visibly pulsed with an energy that seemed almost alive. The judge began presenting historical records that no one expected. He showed evidence of human achievements that had been buried in complex galactic archives. Technological innovations, cultural transformations, adaptive strategies that defied conventional understanding. "Humanity is not a threat," Karen Shin declared. "Humanity is a potential. A living, breathing potential for transformation." Other judges attempted to interrupt, but their objections seemed to dissolve against the weight of his presentation. Yuna realized she was witnessing something unprecedented, a complete reversal of the tribunal's initial stance. Karen Shin's analysis revealed how human hunger had parallels with the most successful civilizations in galactic history. Their ability to adapt, to reimagine, to push beyond existing limitations was not chaotic, it was evolutionary genius. The chamber's atmosphere transformed. What began as a trial was becoming a revelation. Humanity was no longer being judged, it was being recognized. Yuna's heart raced. She understood that this was more than a legal proceeding. This was a moment of cosmic recognition. Humans were being seen, truly seen, perhaps for the first time. Karen Shin produced holographic projections showing human achievements, from medical breakthroughs to technological innovations that had solved problems considered impossible by other species. Each projection told a story of relentless curiosity and determination. They do not conquer, he explained, they understand. They do not destroy, they transform. The alien delegates watched in stunned silence. Yuna represented something more than herself, she was a symbol of human potential, of their incredible capacity for growth and understanding. As Karen Shin continued his unexpected defense, the very structure of the tribunal seemed to shift. Rigid legal proceedings were giving way to something more dynamic, more alive. Humanity was being reframed from a potential threat to a potential partner. Yuna felt a strange mix of emotions, pride, surprise, and a deep sense of validation. She had entered this chamber expecting judgment, and instead was witnessing a profound transformation of perspective. The judge's final statement was simple yet revolutionary. Humanity, Karen Shin said, is not a species to be controlled. Humanity is a force to be understood. In that moment, everything changed. The trial was no longer about humanity's past actions, but about its incredible potential future. The alien representatives saw what Yuna had known all along, that human hunger was not a weakness, but their greatest strength. The chamber fell silent, but it was a different kind of silence. No longer cold and judicial, but alive with possibility, with recognition, with a newfound respect for the small human who had transformed an entire galactic proceeding. Yuna stood, small yet unbreakable, as the first rays of a new understanding began to dawn across the tribunal chamber. The tribunal's decision came swiftly and unexpectedly. Humanity would not be punished or restricted, instead, they would be studied, understood, and potentially welcomed as a collaborative partner in galactic exploration. Yuna stood at the center of the chamber, her small frame now symbolic of something much larger than herself. Karen Shin approached her, his massive alien form towering over her, but no longer feeling threatening. "Your species represents something we have never encountered," he said, his translation device capturing both the words and the underlying emotion. "A living system of continuous transformation." The other alien judges began presenting their findings. Humanity was no longer seen as a chaotic, dangerous species, but as a unique evolutionary experiment, unpredictable, dynamic, and filled with incredible potential. Official diplomatic protocols were rewritten in real time. Where previous interactions had been restrictive and controlled, new frameworks emerged that recognized human adaptability as a potential galactic asset. Yuna realized she had done more than defend humanity. She had fundamentally altered how alien civilizations perceived her entire species. Her simple concept of hunger had become a revolutionary understanding of human potential. Research teams from multiple alien civilizations immediately requested collaboration opportunities. Humans would be invited to join scientific expeditions, technological development programs, and cross-species communication initiatives. Karen Shin's personal recommendation carried extraordinary weight. He described humans as a species defined not by their current capabilities, but by their endless capacity to reimagine themselves. The tribunal chamber, once a place of potential condemnation, had transformed into a space of possibility. Humanity was being offered something unprecedented, a genuine chance to participate in broader galactic development. News of the decision would spread quickly across human colonies. What had begun as a potentially devastating trial was now a moment of incredible validation and opportunity. Yuna felt the weight of the moment. She wasn't just representing herself or her immediate diplomatic team. She was representing every human who had ever dreamed of something more, who had pushed beyond existing limitations. The alien delegates began discussing potential collaborative projects. Human researchers would be integrated into advanced scientific teams. Their unique perspective of continuous questioning and reimagining would be seen as a valuable resource. Technological exchange programs were proposed. Humans would share their innovative approaches while learning from more advanced civilizations. It was no longer about competition, but about mutual understanding and growth. Karen Shin personally requested that Yuna lead the initial human diplomatic team. Her ability to communicate complex ideas, to transform potential conflict into understanding, had been extraordinary. As the proceedings concluded, the tribunal chamber felt different. The cold, judicial atmosphere had been replaced by something more alive, more dynamic. Possibility hung in the air like a tangible energy. Yuna understood that this was more than a personal victory. This was a turning point for humanity's place in the larger cosmic community. They would no longer be seen as outsiders, but as potential partners. The alien judges began preparing official documentation. Humanity would be granted unprecedented access to galactic research networks, diplomatic channels, and collaborative exploration programs. Karen Shin's final statement captured the essence of the moment. Humanity, he said, is not just a species to be studied. Humanity is a living concept of potential. As Yuna walked out of the tribunal chamber, she knew everything had changed. The small human who had entered expecting judgment had transformed an entire galactic understanding of what it meant to be an intelligent species. The universe had just become a much larger, much more interesting place.